Hey, this is Ken Casey from the Dropkick Murphys, and I love the Grandstanders! Take it away, kid!
Live. I'm your host, Scott Kerman, and I'm joined by my usual cohorts, Uncle Joe McLaughlin, and he's the professor, Russ Stevens. Well, we've been on the air for 8 years, and every year we have one special guest. We have many guests, but only one special one.
That's right.
And that's Governor Michael Dukakis.
Who had difficulty getting over here because I tried to get through the playground. That was a mistake.
No. They don't want you crossing that
It was a
grass.
mistake.
We watched you. We're just enamored by you even walking. Thank you, of course, for coming on our show.
Happy to do it, but next time I will be on the left-hand side of the street.
And
we'd cross
it's got
over.
to be a mile walk from your house, right?
Yeah.
Right? You've
And
done it
I try to do a mile every day.
Yeah.
So this is 2 miles, I guess.
Yeah.
And you were brought up behind the school, right?
Over on Boylston.
Started on Boylston Street
Right.
in one of those brick 2 families at the corner of Clark and Boylston. And then when I was 6, we moved out to South Brookline, to the country, as they used to call it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, right.
The land of the Crafts and the Bradys.
All right. Well, we're going to talk sports because we're a sports show just for a little bit. Because, all right. So are you watching the Red Sox games right now, or are they unwatchable to you?
I'm watching them, but not spending a lot of time.
Yeah.
Worrying about them.
Yeah, worrying about them. But it's in our blood, isn't it?
It is.
Every
time you want,
morning
right?
at 6 o'clock in the morning, I've been flipping on it, find out how they did.
Do you ever put the?
It's part of the rhythm of the summer, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the Sox game is on somewhere in the house. Almost
Yeah. Is it
every day.
background noise for you at times? Or-
Well, I don't sit down and watch it so much anymore. Do you still
No.
sit down and watch?
No.
I have it on the back.
Last couple of innings.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like Scotty. Scotty's a
Yeah.
seventh.
No. I'm
inning guy.
coming at the end. If
You
things
come in
go
at the
well,
end.
Yeah.
I do love listening to it on the radio, though. If I'm out in the yard and doing some stuff, the radio it's still the only sport you can really listen
And
to on
they're
the radio.
packing the place. I mean, 36,
Yeah.
37,000 people were there the other night. I mean, it's,
Well, it's the summer too.
Inesto amamas.
Yeah.
That's Greek for it's in our blood.
It's true. I was so surprised though, until I got when I got season tickets, is how many tourists
Not there.
filled that park
Oh, yeah.
during the summer compared to the locals.
Yeah.
Probably half, right, Russ?
Yeah, I mean, and seems like every year it gets more and more. Once you hit, June, the place just explodes.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there are people in town, and there's always someone to buy those tickets.
The
when
Red Sox
people are in
bring a
town.
lot of money into this town and into this state from outside, and they leave a lot of money here.
Governor, did you ever get involved with a potential new stadium for the Red Sox? Was that during your
I?
administration? Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, that didn't come up in your
Oh, it
administration?
came up, and I said, what?
You batted it back down?
Yeah, right.
Walk away from Fenway?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I mean, beautifully located,
Right?
well served by public transportation, among other things,
Yeah.
and a gorgeous park,
Right.
especially when new ownership started fixing it up.
Did they come to
And
you and
close
did
to
they
your home,
did
too.
they did
Yeah.
they want to replace it during your administrations?
Well, there was always talk about replacing it.
Yeah.
And
They're also leaving the city ever?
I
that
don't
was
think
all-
I don't
don't
think
think
there
so.
was Scott, I don't think there was talk about leaving the city, but it was, new thing, putting it out in South Boston someplace. I don't know
Sure.
where they wanted to put it, and I'm saying, it's in Kenmore Square.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful ballpark.
Yeah,
It needs some work, which, by the way,
which
it
they
has gotten.
did.
Oh, my God.
Sure it did.
They've done
I mean, that place is a place of beauty these days, isn't it?
Yeah, now the new stadiums they build are under 40,000 in
Right.
attendance.
Right.
So it kind of fits now. They've gone up while everybody
Mm-hmm.
else has gone down.
Yeah.
So what, it fits like, 38?
Yeah,
So it kind of works
37,
economically
38.
now. Yeah,
Yeah,
so if
yeah,
they had built
yeah.
a new stadium, you probably wouldn't have, right?
Sure.
Be more than 38, 39 anyways,
and
right?
they pushed it out to Yawkey Way. So now you can go out, and the concourse has been extended outside of the park, which
Yeah.
creates more space, and
Yeah.
it works.
And they finally are going to open up the MGM Music Hall. You guys know this?
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's attached to Fenway.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
So they finally, it's been 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
and James Taylor's going to perform in 2 weeks.
And
No
where,
kidding.
Where is it?
No, it's connected to Fenway Park. It's in, it would be in center field. If you look at
Really?
over center
Out there?
field, yeah.
Oh, up top.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Oh,
That's
okay,
that's
yeah.
terrific.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful music hall apparently.
But
They just keep on expanding.
who would tear that?
Not
place
now.
down?
That we're gonna have that for another 100 years.
And we should.
And the Red Sox have bought up all the real estate around there, so they're protected. They've got a buffer zone now. They own like the parking garage and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
And they own the air rights, right?
Yeah, they got everything. Yeah, it's great. No, it's really terrific. Now we need a ballpark and a ball game.
Yeah.
And a ball
Well,
team.
team.
A World Series contending team is what we.
Well, we almost did that last year. That was
fun.
That was a fun year. Right?
Unexpected.
Yeah, and then it just faded.
And remember, we're all veterans of 80-plus years of
Oh yeah.
no win ball. I mean, so.
How
let's
many
hope they
games
get
did
there.
you go to? I know you're a big Braves fan, but how many Red Sox games would you go to a year?
Not too many.
Growing up.
Not too many. But it was easy to get into Braves Field. Third inning and you get in for.
Oh, is that
nothing.
right?
Oh yeah.
The not-whole game, right?
The Knothole
It
game
was
was
just-
only
just-
a nickel,
just-
right?
Just hanging around and getting ready for going into it. 3 or 4 innings into it. No, who was there? I mean, it was one of those things.
Those right field stands were just enormous. Put more people in those right field stands than all of Fenway Park. It was just a big, and what was it, like 500 feet? to hit
It was long.
It was
Could
a
could
long
Boston
ride.
support another baseball team right now?
I don't think so. What do you think?
Couldn't support
I don't
national
think so.
No.
No, I don't think so. You'd have. How would you get any loyalty? Like how long would it take to develop any sort of loyalty to a new team over the Red Sox?
It's rare that a second team develops it. Look at the Clippers. They still you're an LA guy.
Yeah, right,
They still have no following.
right. No, that's true. That's true. I always wanted the National League team. Would have been fun, right?
Yeah.
I would have had a meeting.
We had one.
You had one, and then they moved.
Tommy,
No, I know, but it was.
Tommy Holmes in right field. Are you kidding? I mean,
It's funny because we've had you on the show many years, and you will talk more about the Braves than you will the Red Sox,
yeah,
as far as your childhood and when you grew up.
yeah.
It was devastating losing them. My mother still, to her dying day, always said, the only good thing happened that year was I was born. Because the Braves had left town and their father died.
Well, look, the Patriots. Look at the Patriots. Almost left a few times.
Oh, sure.
I think that was just a little saber rattling to get a little.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It was going. They were going to go to Hartford.
Shreveport, please.
St.
Shreveport,
Louis?
Louisiana.
St. Louis.
That would have been that was true because he wanted. That's why he bought the team to move it there. But the NFL said no, you can't. We need the television market up here,
Right.
and they wouldn't let him move it to St. Louis. So the Rams went there.
Okay, so we were talking before the show about the Orange Line. We'll go away from sports for a minute. Have you ever, in your life, heard of something so ridiculous of what there is going to happen in Boston?
I don't understand it. I don't know why it's happened. I don't know why it wasn't possible to run a transit system that was well-maintained and could operate. And in point of fact, at least when I left office, I think we had one of the best transit systems in the country.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And just the other day, you're watching the video on the news, and people are jumping out of a burning Orange Line train in the middle of a bridge, for God's sakes, jumping into the river.
What? Explain it to me. Is it corruption? What
No.
is it?
Just no one's doing their
Incompetence?
job.
well, yeah, I think, and it's not, I don't want to be critical of the folks that are there. I think they're working hard, but how many of them have had serious experience running a major transit system?
Right.
With a few exceptions, none.
No, they want.
Why would you
career
spend
people.
nearly $1 billion on a new ticket system? What was the matter with the Charlie card?
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they still haven't completed it, and they're gonna spend nearly $1 billion.
And you still can't use like a debit card on it.
So, but what is it? What is it? Is it incompetent? What is it? There has to be an explanation. How can things in government go so
God,
poorly?
all I can tell you is that when I got elected, and obviously I was very committed to public transportation, I was lucky enough to get folks to the T or promote them or whatever who knew what they were doing.
Right.
And we had a transit system that I think was doing extremely well, expanding. I mean, we extended the Red Line to Alewife, all kinds of stuff. It didn't take 8 years to order new cars, which, by the way, still haven't arrived, most of them. I mean, this is crazy. And my hope is that the new governor will
Right.
go to work, and she laid out a pretty good plan the other day. I was waiting for the north-south rail link, and it still didn't appear. So
There's some lobbying to do.
we're gonna have
You're gonna have a
We're gonna have
conversation.
some conversation. I mean, look, that project has to proceed. I mean, this is ridiculous. You have a metropolitan transit system and a 1 mile hole in the middle of the thing. I mean, this is crazy.
You would think that,
Used to
you know what,
Be able to take a train up to Maine, for God's sakes. From
You
down
can't-
in the south, from Rhode Island, you could.
You
if they
you
had-
can, except for the fact that
You
there's
could
this
get out and walk
1
for it.
mile gap.
Yeah.
The Manhattan Institute, a conservative think tank, says that connecting that missing piece is the second most important infrastructure project in the country.
Yep, I agree.
we'll see how long it takes us. If you would hope that what she would do would be to take a look around at transit systems that have had great leadership over the last decade or two and bring someone in. Just bring
Yeah,
someone in who's
steal
done it,
someone, poach
right?
someone from another.
There are people in town that can
Are there?
run that business. There were for me. I mean, I had
Yeah.
some terrific folks, starting with Fred Salvucci, and then a wonderful guy named Frank Kevel, who was a career guy, Northeastern Civil Engineering Co-op student from Dorchester.
That's what you need, is career people
Yeah.
in there.
And
instead
he
of,
he was a co-op kid who worked for the T and went to work for the T. And when I arrived, Salvucci immediately made him the guy in charge of planning and construction.
Yep.
And stuff happened. You know, there's no magic here. I mean, but these have got to be people who know what they're doing, and you give them all the support you possibly can, and they did a fabulous job for me.
Funny, you both said she already.
Well,
Yeah.
Kind of a fait
I
accompli.
think she's
Well,
gonna win,
pretty
right?
strong, yeah.
I mean, she's 30 points ahead. I think that's probably
yeah, I heard
pretty
a
good.
couple ads for the competitor Doughty on the radio on the work drive in.
Oh, really?
And he doesn't sound like he's got the best organization.
Yeah.
Do you know Healy at all?
Say again?
Do you know her at all, Healy?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she's been a great attorney general. She's, a good person, and I'm looking forward to her
Sure.
governorship.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
And
And
so-
she, and by the way, was a hell of a basketball player.
Yeah, right.
She was.
She certainly was, yeah.
So one of our viewers emailed me this week, knew you were going to be on the show, and said, "Ask Governor Dukakis what it felt like to have the same position that Samuel Adams had."
That's an interesting question, but I never thought of it in those terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he said, well, did they have the same desk?
I don't know that either.
Right? Because is the desk in the Oval Office, is
Oh, I
that
don't know.
Lincoln's or?
Yeah, I think it's a Lincoln
Yeah, I
desk,
think
I
it's
believe.
Lincoln
Yeah.
desk,
Yeah, in the Oval Office, but not up
State
here.
House,
Massachusetts,
right.
I've never known, people wouldn't move it.
I haven't the slightest idea whose desk it was.
So you never
He
thought
just
about,
used it.
you
It was
never
sat
thought
there.
about that you shared this same office that Samuel Adams. I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
Well,
You
I
did
thought
think-
thought about that, but I didn't think about the desk.
Because you finished the John Adams
Huh?
biography, right?
Huh?
You finished when I was over at the house, you were working on the John Adams. Did you finish it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did the writer did he just die? Who wrote that?
He wrote,
Was it, who just, Adam?
McCullough.
McCullough?
Colin.
Was he the one who
Dave
wrote that?
McCullough.
He wrote a
But,
Barb.
but I don't think I don't think he wrote the most recent
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Oh, you had the most recent one?
For the life of me, I don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
Somebody gave it to me.
Yeah,
and I read
yeah.
it.
No, the
Yeah.
one that got prominence a few years ago was not. I don't think it was David McCullough's.
Yeah. But
Russ, you wanted to ask him?
No, one thing that I wanted not to go all the way back into the tea, but you wrote it you wrote it often into
yeah,
work right?
regularly. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think one of the things I'm always curious about is what do leaders of states, how do they stay in contact with people on the ground? How do you know what the lived experiences of
one
people
thing you
are?
do is if you have a transit system, is to write it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you whether that was
There
a way for you to.
Well, of course, it was nothing new for me. I mean, I've
Sure.
been writing the thing since I was 5.
People will approach you. You don't have to.
Yeah. But you learn a lot when you're on the tee. I mean, it's not an act. You're not playing around here.
Sure.
And people would constantly come up to me
They would.
and talk, friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Not angry, but they liked the fact that the government was on
Yeah.
the transit system. But B, we had great conversations.
And did you have security when you would get
No,
on in the morning, so
no.
that you were approachable? Someone could come up and have a
No
conversation with you.
security.
There was no one
No security.
Did you
pushing
ever
you
have
off
security?
No.
None.
as a candidate.
But when you went
Well, when I ran for the presidency.
Of course, yeah.
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 But
Not in the state house.
after you got the
had a
nomination,
driver.
then Secret Service came in, right? Before
I
or
can't remember whether it was just before or just after, but.
Didn't you have as governor a driver
But not,
but that was it as far as.
yeah, and it was
Security.
not a law enforcement person. I mean, I had a young person who drove me.
And Governor, when they would come up to you on the Green Line, would they ask you for sort of comment on how you were doing, ask you for favors, tell you a story, let you know that something was important? What was the
All of the
nature
above,
those?
but they were, people were terrific. I mean, I can't say enough for,
Yeah.
the fact that they appreciated the fact that I was there. We had good conversations. Sometimes, I'd start them, sometimes they would. But, and it's, the other thing it does for you is to kind of anchor you,
Sure.
You're not running around with all kinds of, fancy stuff. You're there. People appreciate it. They're friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, have very good questions and very good suggestions.
it was your own?
And knowing the governor, I'm sure you lingered on the platforms many a time
Indeed.
talking with people.
Indeed.
The way you were doing your own polling every
Yeah,
day, right?
well,
About
no,
seeing
you're
what
taking the
what
pulse
the
of the
talk of the
people.
street was, right?
It wasn't scientific, but it just, I mean, I found it to be an important part of what I did.
Yeah.
It must be hard now for these folks who probably have security, have drivers, aren't taking. I think Michelle Wu still uses public
She
transportation,
takes it.
right?
She takes it. And I don't think she's trailed by
A
security.
lot of
people.
security. I mean, it has to be an advantage for
Yeah.
you to be able to
But-
connect with people on the ground like that.
But I found it just important to
Sure.
be part of what was going on.
Right.
Instead of sitting in the back of a limousine and
Reading the
being
poll
driven all
numbers.
over the place.
Right.
And I
Right.
know it's been your motto, the same as with Tip O'Neill's, all politics is local.
And but beyond that, it kind of anchored you.
Yeah.
You weren't off someplace surrounded by all kinds of folks that want to do this, that, and the other thing. I mean, you know, I'd walk from the State House to Park Street and get on the
Yeah.
streetcar and invariably have conversations with my constituents and learned a lot, let me tell you. Yeah.
You were accessible.
Well,
And now there's, like Russ was saying, there's a disconnect. Like, I'm really interested to hear your take on, like, Trump still hasn't conceded. He refuses to acknowledge his loss in the elections.
yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is it because, like Russ was saying earlier, there's a disconnect between him and the average person, or is it
He's a
something
nut.
else?
Mm-hmm.
To be perfectly frank, he's a nut. What?
Oh, yeah, he's
know?
mentally ill, but there's got to be more to it. Why was he taking classified documents? You know, what did he gain by doing that?
Who knows? Who knows? You know,
Why wouldn't he admit that he lost?
that's a very good question.
You know, I mean, that's part of the whole political process, going up there and
You
conceding,
don't
right?
you don't want to do it.
Right.
It's not pleasant,
Right.
but
Do you remember that evening and how that progressed and
Well,
when you went?
I wasn't under any illusions that I was going to win that thing, because you know all the polls seemed to indicate that Bush was going to beat me.
Okay.
But you know, you got to stand up and accept
be a man about it.
accept what happened.
Well,
Well, but you also have to respect the order. You have to respect the government that you've been leading. Ultimately, my answer to the question is he didn't respect the office or his job and didn't think enough of that responsibility to do what was right.
Or he thinks he's more important than
Right.
the country or the government.
Right.
or-
And this is very unusual, Scott, for
I never heard
a
this
serious candidate for the governorship or the presidency to refuse to acknowledge the fact that he's lost.
Even a grassroots, election, you never see this kind of
Yeah.
thing.
but it appeared to be a plan before the
And
election.
now it's become like a standard operating procedure for all Republicans who lose to immediately ask for a recount, even if you lost by millions of votes.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And remember, you've got this electoral college thing,
That's crazy.
which, in my judgment, should have been discarded years ago.
We shouldn't have a Senate.
But
either.
why wasn't it? Why? I mean,
It's compromise.
It seemed to always benefit the Democrats to get rid of the electoral college in the history.
Not always. Not
No,
always,
not at one
not
time.
always. You know, there was a time when you counted the votes and
The Solid
Okay.
South. You remember when we were
Oh,
kids, it
yeah.
was the
Are you
Solid
kidding?
South.
solid South.
But it feels like the Republicans would never win another presidential election again if you did popular vote.
No.
They haven't won
No.
one since Reagan, I think.
No,
No,
well,
no,
Bush.
that's for,
Bush was-
yeah,
Bush
no,
was-
they've
yeah.
won, they've
Yeah.
won them,
No,
but,
They've won some, you know, I mean, they've lost some. Same with the Democrats.
Right.
So why is this so difficult for Trump? Because there's something wrong with him, in my judgment.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know.
narcissism. Like, let's
I don't
start
know-
there.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But
But-
he's got a
but-
following, and these people are deadly serious, too.
Well, but other people have, you know, Joe McCarthy had a following.
Yeah.
And for a while.
But they
it was a
dropped
big one.
away. But the Trump people aren't going away.
We'll see. We'll see. I think there's some dropping off, but not enough to defeat him in a primary.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think in the next 20 years we'll have a third party?
I doubt it. But who's to say? I mean, what's happened to the Republican Party? You know, I worked with lots of Republicans. They were good people. We worked together on all kinds of stuff. We disagreed on some things, but not much. But what is this? Why
Yeah.
can't this guy admit that he lost?
And why do so many people still believe that he did not lose, right? I mean, we're talking about 30% of the country.
Yeah.
I
They
guess.
absolutely, positively reject
guess.
the idea that he lost.
I guess.
Well, if also, if you think about his slogan, which was "Make America Great Again," it speaks to people, and it speaks to certain kind of people who benefited from America being great at one time. There are also a lot of people who never really thought America was great, did not benefit from, and he's not speaking with folks like them, right? He's speaking to folks who have this notion that we could go back to what the world was like decades before. And I think it's
Except
they're
the
holding
world
on.
has never been like
It's
that.
never been like that for a lot of people. It was never great for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when America was great was when it was a socialist country. Now that as we've gone further and further to the right, more and more capitalistic, problems have arisen.
Except I'm not sure that that's really, I mean, has the country moved to the right?
It's gotten more polarized.
Well, where was
I
it
think.
from
Government
1988, when you
has
were
definitely moved to
nominee-
the right.
nominee? How has liberalism changed from 1988 to this moment? The liberal movement.
I don't know that it's changed, it's evolved somewhat. You've got super liberals and you've got moderate liberals and so forth, but they're all in the same party.
Well, what did you consider yourself in 1988? A super liberal?
No.
No.
He was
No.
you were kind of considered a moderate at the time.
Well, I mean, I considered myself a Democrat. I believe strongly in many of these principles. I didn't think we ought to defund the police. I remember I was asked about that, and somebody said, "What do you think about this defunding the police?" I think it's nuts, particularly in a state which, by the way, is the least violent state in the country. You know that?
Yeah.
You guys know that?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of Massachusetts people don't know this.
Well, where would your political views in 1988 be
Oh, you'd be
classified
a
now?
super
Where
liberal.
would you? What would, how
I
would
mean,
you
a progressive guy.
Yeah.
be progressive?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I think we need a police force. I mean, I think we need excellent policing. And one of the things that's happened in this state over the course of the last many years is that we've developed an approach to policing which is pretty impressive and pretty effective.
Is that because they're rooted in the communities, and what's the difference on that? I'm always curious about why it seems
Does
to
the name
work.
Bob DeGrazia mean anything to you guys?
You used to be the commissioner in New York City. And
No, he used to be the commissioner
Here.
here. He had come in from
Yeah.
where?
Well, I
Is it-
think he came from New York City originally.
No, I think he was from Maryland or someplace, anyway, and
Maybe it
somehow
was DC.
Kevin White decided to make him the police commissioner. And he comes in here with some interesting ideas, one of which is that you've got a whole new generation of young police officers who will actually go to college if they have an opportunity and get a degree. I mean, that was unheard of at the time, you know?
Yeah.
And DeGrazia put together a program where if you worked as a cop from 6 until midnight, 5 days a week, and were willing to go to either Boston State College, subsequently UMass Boston, or Northeastern, you could get a degree. And, by the way, become a sergeant in 3 years, not 20.
Yeah, right.
Right?
That's obviously benefit
And
pay-wise.
there's this whole new generation, you know, Bratton was one of them, there were many others.
Jumped on it.
And I hired a bunch of them, I'll tell you. And in fact, convinced Bratton to leave the Boston PD and run the MBTA transit police. 65 strong at the time.
Is that right?
But he was willing to do it. And then to move from there to the Mets, which had serious problems. I mean,
Yeah.
they stole police exams and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think 2/3 of them were gone by the time Bratton left. And then Bratton subsequently becomes commissioner, only to leave us 6 months later and go to New York. And I remember picking up the phone, "What are you doing? You said this was your dream job." And it's interesting. Bill said, "Look, if I can prove that the kinds of policing I support will work in New York City, it will revolutionize policing.
Yeah.
And for 2 years, in New York, with a mayor whose name was what?
Giuliani.
Giuliani. Bratton cut the homicide rate, which was 2,500 murders a year, in half. In half. And Giuliani fired him. Why?
I don't know, but I would assume that he was probably getting more attention than Giuliani.
He was on the front page of Time.
Oh, nice save.
I don't.
Right?
That's
No,
my
that's
guess,
what nails
right?
it.
As the man of the year.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the guy at last, what was the headline? At last we're doing something about crime.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I wouldn't.
I got the homicide
Not
rate in
exactly
half-
a shocker.
in half in 2
Yeah,
years.
right, exactly.
2 years.
Governor, could we, it's hard to talk about police and crime without talking about guns.
Yeah.
I saw you speak at a community event. I happened to have been flipping the channel,
Yeah,
local access, I think in my area, neck of the woods, and you were speaking with a group about guns.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about how you've seen the perception and policy around guns change over the last 30 years?
I don't understand this anti-gun thing. You guys are familiar with the Second Amendment, right?
Yeah.
What does it say? It talks about gun control in the context of a well-regulated militia. That does not sound to me like,
AK
Every Tom, Dick, and
15s.
Harry can have
Self-carry.
whatever they want.
Right.
right? On the contrary, it talks about a well-regulated militia. So where does this notion come from that you've got an unrestricted right to walk around with a gun?
When did they start the mandatory 1 year?
When they started passing out most of the Second Amendment and just no, you never
And where
shall
the,
not
Did they
the
start the
right to bear
mandatory 1
arms.
year when you were governor?
we're here?
The mandatory 1 year if you, without a permit?
I think that was after you,
Well,
wasn't it?
no, well, I don't know whether it was before or after.
That was, I mean, that's such a strict law. I mean, that's been fantastic, right? I mean,
We've got the lowest homicide rate in the country, in this state.
Yeah. You can get a bad actor off the street that you maybe hasn't committed a crime yet, but if you're darn sure he's
course.
going
what
to.
do you think of you? What do you think? Do you think people should have guns?
Not without tough regulation. I mean, somebody can just get a gun, go out and
Have a
walk
license,
around.
take a course. I mean, like,
Yeah,
A well-regulated militia.
Yeah.
right.
That's
It
the
was
operative
put
language.
there in case so that if the government became overbearing, we could rise up and have a revolution.
Right.
It wasn't so that every Tom, Dick, and Harry could
Right.
walk down the street,
course.
guns ablazing.
Right. And one of the reasons Massachusetts has the lowest homicide rate in America,
They have
with the
strictest
possible
gun-
exception of Hawaii, we go back and forth with Hawaii, is because we have a tough, or we had a tough gun control law.
And
What's happened?
Hawaii also has a very
Indeed, it
stringent
does,
gun
yeah.
control.
Do you
And,
believe in your lifetime that people would be able to walk around with machine guns?
no, on the contrary, it's absolutely ludicrous to talk about,
Yeah.
people having a right to walk around with
And
with an
AK-47.
automatic weapon. Jeez, it's ridiculous.
And then, but it's getting worse, not better, in this country. They're getting more rights to be able to do more things with guns
Yeah.
and go into public buildings,
Yeah.
schools.
State of Michigan, apparently you can go to, you can walk into the state capitol
with a gun.
with a gun on you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the scary thing is that when these horrible tragedies occur, gun sales go up. That's the perversion of this whole situation is
Because
that
everyone figures.
I better
the
get
gun
one.
would say, I better get one now before they
Yeah.
make a new law saying I can't have it. And the normal people say,
Yeah.
maybe I better have one for defense in the house.
But one of the nice things about being part of a federal system is that you have 50 states that can try different things,
Yeah.
right? And this state
And see which works.
does this its way. And there's a reason that even in the middle of all of this, we have had a total, I think I'm correct, of 17 homicides in the first 7 months of this year.
Amazing.
Think about it. 17.
It's unbelievable. It's great.
17 too many, but 17.
17,
Right.
yeah.
Right? And we're down from last year, which was pretty good. Now, doesn't that tell you something?
How did, if you can recall, how would you, as you become president, addressed the gun issues in 1988? Because Clinton came
I don't think
in.
they were as severe as
Didn't
again.
Clinton come in '92, and then he did the military style ban? Is that right?
It was during that. I don't know if he promoted it, but it was around during
Yeah.
that time a ban came to pass, and it was around. I think it
The
was a
bridge
20-year
bill
ban.
was when? In the late 80s?
Was
So
after, right.
That was when,
Maybe a little earlier than that, actually. I'm not sure.
Do you remember your stand on that? And
I've always
was that a huge issue during the
well.
campaign?
No, but I screwed up in one respect. And that was not taking on Bush when it came to the death penalty. Because he was from Houston, and I was from Boston, right?
Right.
They have the death penalty in Texas. We don't. The homicide rate in Greater Houston was 6 times the homicide rate
Oh,
in Greater
very
Houston.
interesting.
And I never said that.
You
Don't
had-
ask me why. I can't, for the life of me, I don't understand.
Very interesting. Yeah,
Absolutely
the numbers
ridiculous.
backed
What
you
was I
up.
thinking of?
yeah.
6 times.
We know what you think of him politically, but what do you think of George Bush Sr. as a person?
Decent guy, you know. I don't think he was a very good foreign policy president. He and Gorbachev put that whole détente thing together, to their great credit, both of them. But domestically, didn't do much.
He didn't seem to. He could have used some trips on the Green Line.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, he just didn't. You know, he lived in a. I'm
Didn't mix
sure
that
that he lived
Kenny
in a
Bunkport?
bubble. You know,
Yeah.
one
Well-
thing that that's also happened since the last time we spoke. And not to get into the issue of Roe v. Wade. I'm almost more interested in the Supreme Court. You know, you must have had. You would have. One of the biggest responsibilities you would have had coming in as president would be presumably to
Appointing
pick.
people, yeah.
Did you have folks in mind that you carried with you into that process, or were you going to basically wait, see where everything was, and then?
I don't think I arrived at the door of the presidency with this person or that person or some other person very much in mind. And I'm sure, had I been elected president, I would have gone through a pretty detailed process.
Who did Bush put in?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. He might not even have appointed somebody in those 4 years. It's not entirely
Can't
clear.
remember.
Yeah,
Can't
I
remember.
can't
Sorry.
remember.
Was it Scalia?
No, that came.
Rehnquist?
Could have been. It could. Scalia would have been around that age. I don't know if Reagan appointed him
And
or
I think he preceded
Scalia. Bush. Yeah.
Bush.
Yeah. Might have been late Reagan. I'm not sure though. It's a great question.
But this latest crowd, you know, is really how can a group of presumably, with one or two exceptions, thoughtful and intelligent people, even if, you know, we don't agree with them on everything, how can they possibly come to the conclusion that with these
they're putting politics
with these
before
de-
the law.
with these decisions? I don't know what it is, you know, politics, this, that, and the other thing, but, you know, at this stage of the nation's history, you make it easy for people to walk around with a gun?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense
The
to
Roe
me.
versus Wade.
Well, we'll be living with that for a long time.
Right.
Long after any of us.
Yeah.
They have agendas. They're bringing agendas to to the bench. I think it's pretty clear. They knew
Well, yeah,
that they'd be
they're cherry picking certain cases around the country and bringing them in front of them just to make political points right now.
Well-
One by one, they've got a little pecking order and they're
It seems
ticking
like
off the list.
what happens if they try to, and apparently in October, address gay marriage?
Why are they doing this? You know, what is the point of all of this? mean,
I don't know what
understand.
there's a game-
Interracial relationships. I mean, these are things that they apparently Clarence Thomas
These are-
of all people, right?
These are bridges we thought we crossed a long time ago,
Sometime
and we
ago.
were going to be on the other side of forever.
Yeah,
And we're
like
not.
50 years
That's
ago.
the basic,
Right.
definition of conservatism is you like it the way it is or the way it was,
Yeah.
better than what
No, these
people
are
proposing.
activists, judges. They're just activists.
Taking us back.
Sure. Yeah.
They
It's on the other
zealots?
side.
I do not understand this attitude about guns.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it.
Right.
These are presumably 9 thoughtful, well-educated people. They live in this country. They certainly are experiencing what's been going on. How do you come to the conclusion that more guns, not less,
Right.
are a good thing for the
I
country?
presume-
Especially in the light of
What's going
the
on?
the language of the Constitution, which seems to be quite clear.
And they have access to the same statistics that Governor Dukakis has been talking about in Massachusetts. Low guns, low homicide rate. You know.
Is the will of the people being heard anymore? Is the minority ruling
It is here,
Right.
in Massachusetts?
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
unfortunately, the minority is in the rules are written for the minority, and the Republican Party has done a much better job of playing by those rules. You
Yeah.
know, they've learned how to co-opt, the Senate, the electors in the Electoral College. They realized that if they can get a whole branch of the government, of the 3 branches, that isn't elected, if you can get that set up,
Now-
and you've got it for life. They
Now,
don't lose
on
that
the on
job.
the good news side, I did think of you, knowing we'd be seeing you in this past couple of weeks when President Biden signed the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and lots of investment in the kind of struck me as the kind of bill that you would have been
good,
all
good
for.
things, good things.
Right.
But when it comes to law enforcement, I am for thoughtful, effective community policing. It really does work. It's worked in this state and continues to work. But
So I was going
I
to ask you
don't
about the
understand
American flag. You know, growing up. No, I know it's
Yeah.
kind of random, but
Yeah.
no, there's certain things I want to ask you.
yeah,
So, all our lives, you see the American flag and you have a special feeling.
yeah.
It seems like the Trump and the Republican Party have weaponized the American flag. And I ask you, when you see the American flag, what do you think?
I usually feel good about it,
Yeah,
but
But you understand that it's been weaponized.
I think what Scotty's saying is when you see it flying from the roof of a pickup truck, you might have a different.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Impression of it.
Exactly. Do
Particularly
you
when
feel
there's
that way too, Russ? And that it's been.
Well,
Some
it
of
all
the-
depends on the context there.
Well, some of the language. It's interesting what's happened to language, right? Patriot used to mean one thing, and now folks have co-opted that phrase. And if you're not on the right wing, you're not a patriot, right?
Right.
You're not patriotic unless you believe in America first. And
but
Yeah.
we shouldn't romanticize the past.
Yeah,
right.
You know, prior to 1950,
the good old days weren't that good.
this country was very different.
Right.
Very different. I mean, it was intolerant, it was reactionary, it was, those were not good times. Anybody who tells you that
Right.
we ought to go back to the 30s and 40s and kind of feel good about it doesn't know what they're talking about.
When Bill Russell died, we heard a lot of the tributes in the case where they refused to play. I can't remember what state they were in, where they refused to play, I think it was a preseason game. And I remembered the story where you were cutting hair.
The Barber story.
Right, the barber story, when you were younger, folks who couldn't get their hair cut.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
And that
I
was
mean,
in
it was,
Pennsylvania, right?
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
a northern state.
yeah, yeah.
But I
But-
think how much different, how you addressed Republicans on the show a couple years ago. You talked about Reagan's immigration policy, and you were very positive about it.
Yeah,
The amnesty program.
right.
You talked about one of your fellows, one of your past students who is a congressman now, and how he came to this country through the program. And you talked about what a good program it was, and it was just to hear someone of your stature, a Democrat, actually say something good about a Republican is something that we never hear now.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of those good Republicans are no longer Republicans, unfortunately.
Right.
You know.
So when did that wind change? When did all of a sudden Republicans and Democrats stop going out at night and having a beer after the day was over?
I can't pinpoint it for you.
Right. But you guys had good relationships in '88.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you were.
Yeah, yeah.
And was that why? Because you didn't want to be negative? Is because
Well, I mean,
of that?
we're all presumably grown-ups, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
you work hard, you compete intensely, you do the very best you can, but at some point, you gotta count the votes.
Did you feel like George Bush had the best interests of the country in 1988 in mind?
Oh, I think so, I never thought he would be an effective domestic president, and I don't think he was.
Right.
But his leadership, when it came to foreign policy, and the work that he and Gorbachev did to end the Cold War, was pretty impressive, and Bush deserves a lot of credit for that.
But the negativity now, that it seems like, and especially on the Republican side, they don't really talk about policy, they
No.
just talk about,
Accumulating power.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is I wouldn't say he's a throwback, maybe he's a throw-off or something, but, you know, I don't think we've ever had a president. Well, we've
He's
had.
like a mutation
We've had
in the political
we've had
process.
people in the political system that have, you know, been extreme and angry and so on. So it's not as if this is new. Who was it who said? Someone was saying, "Have you ever seen it this bad?" And and the response was, "Were you around? You weren't around, obviously, but
you were,
how about 1865?
Right.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
pretty bad, right?
yeah, right, yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is pretty unusual. This is pretty unusual.
Who was your favorite president of your lifetime?
I think probably Jack Kennedy, in terms of my age and coming, you know, into the political system when he was.
He must have been an inspiration to you
He was.
at that
He
age.
was. He was.
Did you ever meet
And
him?
Once or twice, earlier in his career. I think I was at the Democratic State Convention.
Mhm.
Okay.
But his assassination was just devastating.
Where were you?
I had just left my law office to buy a sandwich and take it back to Hill and Barlow, and you heard about the president. You heard about the president. That was.
They brought us in from recess and said, "You're all going home."
Really? Did they? Yeah.
Yeah, they did. We were out at recess and they said, "Everybody in, everybody in.
Yeah.
Go get your coats and line up for the buses."
Yeah.
How, I know you can't measure this, 9/11 to Kennedy's assassination, did it have the same feeling? You know, you were a different spot in your life,
Yeah.
but the helplessness of the moment. Where were you for 9/11?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I can tell you. I think was I teaching at Northeastern at the time? I think so.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
after
would've
I-
been, yeah,
So
I guess.
over September 11th, 2001.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you probably
I
were
was teaching.
just starting the semester, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And it was the morning, so,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
morning class.
yeah.
But how can you compare the two? Are those the two, as far as your lifetime, two of the top 5 worst moments of this country?
Yeah, I'd say that. I'd say that. But, we move on, and you try to learn from your mistakes and so on and so forth. I mean,
You still gotta go to work as a school the next day, and life goes on.
But the country seemed to band together for 9/11.
At that
Would
time.
you guys
Mhm.
agree?
yeah.
Yeah, for a while. I mean,
Yeah.
people were nicer to each other and more gentle. I
Are we
think.
capable of still having those emotions as a country?
We are, but this guy Trump is a serious problem when it comes to dealing with this. No question.
You know, sometimes crises don't bring us together, like the COVID thing, that drove people apart.
Yeah.
Well, there's very little that's not political right now,
Yeah,
and not
everything's
politicized. There are a lot of
political.
things that you never would have imagined being political issues become political. And
Well, but, if you go back through American history, we've had, what happened post Civil War and, the Jim Crow stuff that was just terrible,
mhm.
terrible. And what happened to African Americans as a result of that. So we've had real problems, but this particular situation is, I think, unusual. in
So
many
you
ways.
haven't soured at all in public service?
Not at all. I mean, being in a position where you can make a difference in the lives of your fellow citizens is very special. And that's what public service makes it possible for you to do.
Do you think people are going into public service with that
Yes, yes,
in mind
yes.
still?
I've taught, hundreds, thousands of young people, and they are inspired to do this, and they do great work.
Feels like the Congress people and senators seem to have their coffers. Like I just heard something that AOC is now worth $29 million. That Mitch McConnell came in as the poorest senator and is now one of the richer senators. How does that happen?
I have no idea,
Hmm.
since I've never had that experience.
Right.
The special
Do you,
interests give
Governor?
all
How do you feel about term limits? Would some of this sort of power accumulation that happens, particularly in the U.S. Congress, be counteracted by term limits? Now, you'd lose some smart people. You'd
Yeah.
lose someone who gains 8
I'm not
years.
a term limits guy.
Yeah.
I think if, people do a good job, Ted Kennedy was there for 40-something years,
Yeah.
right? And it seems to me,
Mhm.
made a real contribution. But,
Was he more liberal than you? If that's a
Well, I
I
would
don't
say
think
so.
so. No, I mean, we did a lot of stuff together. He was a pleasure to work with. Pleasure to work with. And very responsive. When I was governor, I mean, he went out of his way to be helpful. And,
Did you ever disagree on anything?
nothing important that I can remember.
And he also worked across the aisle. I mean,
Oh,
those
yeah.
guys
Some of
made
his
their
best friends.
careers working
Right.
across the aisle, and
Right.
that is not valued now,
Right.
unfortunately. It's-
Well, I'm not sure, but as the Republican base gets narrower and narrower and narrower, how do you deal with these folks that just got nominated in Wyoming? I mean,
Right.
this woman, says her goal is to essentially, eliminate the national congressional presence when it comes to what goes on at the state level? I mean, is she serious? I mean,
gonna-
Social Security?
Right. She's going to try to destroy it from the inside, right? Like that's what
Is that what
she
she's
thinks
really
her
talking
job
about?
is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So Republicans have been trying to get rid of Social Security. That you brought that up for many years. To me, you get rid of Social Security and you really end the country as we know it, right?
They're not gonna do it.
Because you
They
would.
can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's a goal of theirs.
Some of them.
Graham said that.
But it has always been in their platform, because it's a socialist construct like Medicare, same thing. But that's their base. Their base is on Medicare and on Social Security.
I don't
Yeah,
understand.
Yeah.
Some of these things, do you just shake your head and go, I don't understand?
Like, remember the Tea Party? And you'd look at a picture of the Tea Party, all holding their signs against socialized medicine. And you know by looking at the picture that every last
I
one
know,
of
it's
them
true.
was on socialized
I know, they're
medicine.
right, it's 67
Yeah.
years old.
Go figure, you know.
And look at Sarah Palin.
Yeah, but they don't like
She may
it.
end up being,
No, they don't like it. She's gonna lose.
oh, she is gonna
Yeah.
lose?
To whom? She won the primary.
Oh, she
Yeah,
won?
they had the, it's a funny system there. They started with like 30,
Yeah.
then they cut it down to 5, now they cut it down to 2, and she's not well liked up there.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Do you think Governor Michael Dukakis and what you believe in could have gotten to the Democratic nominee in 2022?
Well, I think somebody with my beliefs could.
Well, Joe Biden did. He ran against Joe Biden.
No, but I
He
know,
did.
but right, but you're more liberal than Joe Biden.
Not so sure. I mean, I
Sim-
think we're pretty
not,
much in the same.
not too far from each other.
Oh, you think
Yeah.
so? Oh, is that right?
Pretty much Labor
Yeah.
Democrats that
Yeah.
beat.
Yeah.
Oh, so you
I
wouldn't
mean-
consider him a moderate in some level?
I mean,
Joe was becoming
Compared
a
to,
wishy-washy.
a moderate compared to, you know, back then?
Ted Kennedy. A liberal? Yeah.
Yeah. Michael Dukakis.
Yeah. A far out liberal, whatever that means. I don't think so. I'm not for defunding the police. I mean, I'm for
Yeah.
Right.
community policing
So the
at
whole
its best.
progressive thing, yeah, what is progressive? The progressive,
well, it's another word for liberal. They don't like to use the word
but
liberal.
it feels, no, but it feels like progressive
Liberals
is,
were-
you know, ultra liberal.
Well, I don't know what that means, but, you know, do I think we need a well-trained, responsive, effective police force in this country and in our communities? Of course we do. Of course we do. How do you do that in a way that tries to get the best out of people? Well, this state is an example of that.
What do you consider the number one issue in this country right now?
The
I
number
would-
one issue?
Number one, I would consider it healthcare.
Well, I think the number one issue is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
No, but what do you consider the number one issue?
If you could change
The
one thing.
facing the average American right now, what would you consider the most pressing issue?
The cost of living.
Hmm.
As a result of events that happened
Sure.
that probably couldn't have been foreseen. And I think probably will be resolved. We'll see, we'll see. You know, everybody was, I mean, every economist was talking about when the recession would begin with the 3.5% unemployment rate.
Right.
I couldn't understand this.
Right.
But, you know, we have to deal with that.
What's going to happen to Donald Trump? Will he be indicted?
Beats the hell out of me. I don't know. He's a strange guy, but he's,
No, but will Merrick Garland, seems like he,
I think he's afraid to indict him.
no, he's, you know.
Russ, what do you think?
Well, I think this whole situation with the documents does have this sort of strikes me at a little bit of the Al Capone for tax evasion piece, where it's a much smaller charge compared to all the other
Right.
havoc that he's wreaked that I'm sure everyone would like to go after him about. but they may have something here that's really cut and dry. And it seems to have him and the Republicans on the run a bit. I don't think they know what to do with this thing. It's very technical.
How do you think the country will react? I agree. How do you think the country will react
To what?
to him being indicted?
The people that like him
Yeah.
will be angry, and the people that don't like him will think it was.
30% of the
already
people, there's literally nothing he could do to shake the support of 30%
We've
of the
already
people.
had people attacking FBI
Yeah.
headquarters and driving cars into the Capitol
Yeah.
building.
How did people become, the average person become so arrogant that they think they can do that now? Right?
They-
Different from
they're not-
your time.
These folks are not average.
Yeah, that's apart from the average Joe.
Governor, you've spoken on the show several times about the need to build a political organization and do the groundwork
Grassroots,
in order to win. I know you're not probably in the middle of this anymore, but like, do you get the sense that the Democrats now understand that and see this as this is the kind of work we're going to need to do in order to,
I think many of them do.
yeah.
But I'm a little concerned about this supporting right-wing Republicans in primaries
Right.
as Democrats. I mean, that's
It's a big risk. Yeah.
Concerned, very concerned, yeah.
Yeah, I think of you often, Governor, when I see the way the Republicans were smart enough, say 15, 20 years ago, to go grassroots and take over state legislatures where they could determine, voting districts, congressional districts, and electoral districts. And they was much smarter, and they went from, as a minority party, to be able to have a position of power, because they followed your dictum of grassroots politics is the most
But
important
they also
politics.
gerrymandered the hell out of it.
That's right.
Well, that's how they were able to do it, by grassroots.
I mean, look at Wisconsin.
over.
Wisconsin was and is a progressive state.
Not now.
But their congressional districts are drawn
I mean, they're
with that.
ridiculous.
The rural districts were.
Wisconsin went for Trump in 2016.
Yeah.
Barely won in 20
Yeah.
for Biden.
They also went from,
Did you win Wisconsin?
by the way,
That governor, remember, was.
Did I win Wisconsin?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can tell you
I
that.
can't
I'll
remember.
tell you a state that I didn't win decisively. West Virginia.
West Virginia.
I love
It's
this
changed
story.
night and day. Okay.
Well, but that's because Democrats have not been working
Speaking to
the
the
grassroots
working
in
class.
West
Yeah.
Virginia, you know.
Yeah.
You're right.
Wisconsin voted twice for Obama, though, too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
interestingly. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
And Manchin.
Oh, he's making money hand over fist, isn't he?
Feels
But
like.
see, I'm a guy that's supportive of Manchin. It's not that I agree with everything, but I'd much rather have Manchin doing what he's doing now than going to the other side.
Sure.
And he is a relatively progressive guy, all things considered, but not, AOC, okay. So somehow you gotta,
What do you think of AOC?
I think she's interesting. We educated her here in Boston University.
Yes, we did.
not Northeastern.
Not Northeastern. But she's an important part of the party, and I think we embrace her as we embrace Manchin.
So you'll be 89 in November, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh,
in
for
advance.
the elections.
Yep, and Joe Biden is going to be 80, I think, in November,
Right.
and then he would be, 82 in the new, for a second
When
term?
Running for a second term. Yeah.
Do you think he's too old to run for a second term?
Well, now that I'm approaching my 89th year.
There's only
the
one answer he
obviously
can
is
give.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
There's only one answer.
But I mean, right, there's a difference between, living, teaching and stuff and the high pressure
Yeah,
position
yeah,
of
yeah.
president. Do you want him to run again?
Depends on what kind of shape he's in. He has just gone through a very impressive last 2 or 3 weeks and
Yeah.
done all
Yeah,
kinds of stuff.
true.
With
With COVID.
with good people. I mean, it wasn't just him, but, so. And Manchin deserves, in my opinion, a good deal of credit for making it possible to do that.
I'm surprised that you're giving Manchin that compliments, because
Well-
didn't he feel like he was holding the party hostage?
No, I don't think he was holding the party hostage. He represents West Virginia.
Right.
But
and-
he was leveraging that vote
And,
for.
and he took care of his constituents.
But in the last analysis, the results have been pretty impressive over the past few weeks.
Yeah, how about
Well,
Sinema?
but
Huh? I don't know her.
But she's doing the same thing, right?
what
Those
if?
two-
But what if Teddy Kennedy did the same thing representing Massachusetts? It was in a similar spot. Do you think that Teddy Kennedy would have looked out for Massachusetts' interests and reflected Massachusetts' beliefs, or?
Well, no, that's a great question. But what I'm trying to get across is that is he representing West Virginia in holding, the Democratic Party hostage, or is he representing himself and his?
Well,
and
I
his-
think he's a
and his
moderately-
personal interest.
I think, Scott, I think he's a moderately progressive guy. Certainly in the context of national politics. I mean, put him up against some of the folks on the other side. What do you think?
So
And-
you're saying better him because if not, a Republican would probably
And
be.
I
in
Well,
the
we
think-
would
West
have nothing if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, and I think he's somebody who has some pretty strong beliefs about things and is reflected in what he does, even though I prefer that, in an ideal world, he'd be somewhat more progressive. But what they've produced in the last few weeks is pretty impressive.
True. No, Senator Warren doesn't seem like she's getting much done. Would you?
Oh, she's getting laid. She's an important.
Do you think she's in the right spot as senator when
Yeah.
she did so much others?
What? Well, she's,
Consumer advocacy.
well,
and,
she's still doing. She's still advocating for consumers.
I think she's behind a lot of this. Seem to be supporting this hearing aid, over-the-counter hearing aid piece, which
She
is
and the
gonna-
guy from Iowa. They were the co-sponsors,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, they passed it, right?
Yeah, I mean that's going to affect a lot of people.
Grassley and
Senator
Elizabeth.
Warren, yeah.
Okay, I know. I just heard about that. That now you can buy it. You don't need
Yeah.
a prescription.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Why does that benefit people?
It depends. It all depends.
Well, a lot of people most people that need hearing aids are elderly, right? They're on Medicaid. Medicaid didn't cover a lot of hearing aids.
Oh, it did not. Oh, okay. So now they can get it at a
Or
lower
they
price.
didn't cover,
Doesn't cover.
yeah.
Doesn't cover it.
'em, or they didn't cover they would cover like an ear doctor, an MD, but not an audiologist. They would say, no, we're not paying
Yeah.
for audiologists, which is how you get a hearing test,
But it seemed it would benefit the country more if they
If they
passed
could-
something that would fund it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. It's going to evolve. We'll see. But
But you don't wear a hearing aid, do you?
I do.
Oh, you do?
2 of them. And it's the Lyric brand. What's
Okay.
the Lyric brand? You leave them in for months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrific.
I just had them changed today.
My mother had
Which
them.
is one,
See, I was in that whole-
which is one of the reasons why I'm
But
hearing
you can't
much
see them.
better.
But you can't see
I
them.
can't see them. They don't come out for.
That's great.
I checked
And they gotta be
every-
recharged every
every
once in a
every
while.
3 months. No, they're not even. I don't know. I mean, I saw my hearing
Yeah.
person today, and it was obvious that I was losing whatever.
Yeah. needs
And
a
she
little
cleaned them
recharge.
out, did this and
That's
the other
great.
thing. And I'm
Yeah,
in
you-
shape.
Crystal clear.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
Well, you look great.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
I feel good. I'm a little concerned about my bride, which is
Yep.
something
How
I
is
gotta
Kitty doing?
with her. Doing okay, but she's going to be 86. I mean, she's beautiful. But she's going to be 86.
I said this the other day to some friends. I said, and I said it many times. I said, no one loves his wife more than Mike Dukakis loves his wife.
Well,
It's
there are others
fantastic.
I hope that do it as well.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to see.
But I did tell her I'd be home at 8.
Yes.
You gotta go. All right. Well, we're gonna drive you. That's our show.
We'll have to drive you.
Yeah, that's our show. Want to thank, of course, the governor. Want to thank the fellas. Want to thank everyone behind the scenes. Ian is leaving us in
Thank
2
you, Ian.
weeks, and I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you, Ian, Fantastic.
You will be missed, Ian.
We didn't think we could ever replace Corbin behind the scenes, but Ian truly
gotten the job done.
yeah,
Thank
Doug
you,
got
Ian.
the-
great
Otherwise.
things are going to happen to Ian in the future, and we wish him the best in all of it. Want to thank, of course, Todd, Adam, who just got hired, Eric, all the guys behind the scenes. That's our show for tonight. Please join us again next week, Wednesday at 6 o'clock. My name is Scott Kerman. Have a great and happy night. I'm Scott Kerman. Have a great and happy night.
The elephants are in town.
Here comes the circus.